Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving deep into the events of March 27, 1977. It's a day that literally rewrote the rulebook on how we fly. We're going to respectfully but thoroughly break down the deadliest accident in all of aviation history, the Tenerife airport disaster. Our goal is to untangle this incredibly complex and, frankly, deeply tragic chain of events so we can understand exactly how it unfolded and, more importantly, what it taught us. Let's just start with a number to help us wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this tragedy. 583. That is how many lives were lost in a single instant on a fog-covered runway in the Canary Islands. It's a completely staggering figure, and it's exactly why unpacking this event is absolutely crucial for understanding modern aviation safety. To figure out how this happened, we really need to rewind just a bit and look at our key players. We're dealing with two massive, fully loaded Boeing 747 passenger jets. First, we have Pan Am Flight 1736, originating out of LA, picking up folks in New York with 396 people on board. Then, there's KLM Flight 4805, flying out of Amsterdam with 248 people. Now, both of these incredible jumbo jets were bound for the exact same beautiful tropical destination, Las Palmas, the capital of the Canary Islands. But, those idyllic tropical vacations were about to be severely interrupted. At 1 p.m., a separatist group known as NPIAC called in a bomb threat to the Las Palmas airport. Just 15 minutes later, a bomb actually exploded in the terminal. Thankfully, the building had been evacuated, but that blast forced the complete closure of Las Palmas. Because of this, both of our massive 747s, along with a bunch of other flights, were suddenly forced to divert 110 kilometers away to the much smaller Los Rodeos Airport, which we know today as Tenerife North Airport. This diversion is the absolute perfect illustration of what safety experts call the Swiss cheese model of disaster. It's where multiple, tiny, seemingly unrelated failures align perfectly to let a catastrophe slip through. This was the very first falling domino. Los Rodeos was just a small mountain airport sitting at 2,000 feet of altitude. Suddenly, it's crammed with this unprecedented 747 congestion. And thanks to its mountainous geography, moist ocean air pushed up the slopes and rapidly cooled. This created a sudden, extremely thick, blinding fog that dropped visibility down to a mere 300 meters. So while they're waiting on the ground for Las Palmas to reopen, the KLM captain makes a fateful decision. He decides to fully refuel his enormous jet to save time later on. But because the airport was already overflowing, his aircraft entirely blocked the one and only main taxiway until 4:45 p.m. Here's the kicker. If the KLM captain hadn't decided to refuel right then, the Pan Am flight, which was ready to go much earlier, could have departed way before the weather severely deteriorated. Instead, they were literally trapped behind the refueling KLM jet, forced to just sit and wait as that blinding fog thickened. Once KLM finally finished refueling, both planes got clearance to position for takeoff. And this really just illustrates the sheer logistical nightmare taking place on the ground. The apron and taxiways were so incredibly jammed with diverted planes that both 747s had to use the active runway itself just to taxi into position. KLM was ordered to taxi down the runway and pull a 180-degree turn at the end. Pan Am was ordered to follow KLM down that same runway, but they were supposed to exit at a taxiway called C3. However, battling terrible visibility and totally insufficient runway markings for such a difficult turn, the Pan Am crew missed that C3 exit. They ended up continuing slowly down the active runway, swallowed by that heavy fog. Section 2. The fatal miscommunication. So, navigating the exact same runway, totally without ground radar, the only thing keeping these two behemoths apart was their radio communication. Positioned at the very end of the runway, the KLM captain asked for and received his route clearance. Now, crucially, route clearance is not permission to begin the actual takeoff roll. But, believing he had that clearance, the captain throttled up his engines and sent this highly ambiguous message to the control tower: "We are at takeoff." Or, depending on the translation, "We are taking off." Even today, aviation experts study this exact phrase as a masterclass in why precise language absolutely matters. Hearing this confusing phrase, the control tower immediately sensed something might be wrong. They responded with an extremely firm instruction: "Stand by for takeoff, I will call you." It was a crystal clear command to wait. Had the KLM cockpit clearly heard this one single sentence, the plane would have stopped right in its tracks and the whole tragedy would have been entirely avoided. But the truly heartbreaking part is what happened next.
At the exact same millisecond that the control tower was telling KLM to stand by, the Pan Am crew, who were listening in on the same radio frequency and suddenly realized KLM might be accelerating, transmitted this critical, frantic warning. "We are still down the runway." Two life-saving messages sent at the exact same moment.
And here is the fatal mechanical flaw that doomed 583 people. Because those two vital radio messages were sent simultaneously on the exact same frequency, they created something called a radio heterodyne. Basically, this is a high-pitched squeal or static distortion that happens when signals overlap and just completely cancel each other out. Because of this, the KLM cockpit didn't hear the tower telling them to stop, they didn't hear Pan Am saying they were still on the runway, all they heard in their headsets was a brief, loud burst of static. Even so, there was one final chance. The flight engineer in the KLM cockpit had briefly heard a tiny snippet of the Pan Am transmission right before the static took over. He bravely asked his captain, "Is he not clear, that Pan American?" Tragically, the highly experienced KLM captain, likely dealing with immense stress and just an overwhelming desire to get off the ground, simply replied, "Oh yes," completely dismissing the engineer's hesitation. He kept the throttles pushed forward, accelerating his 300-ton aircraft blindly into the 300-meter fog. Section 3. The Tragic Collision. As the KLM jet roared down the runway, gathering tremendous speed, its glaring landing lights pierced the fog, hurtling directly toward the Pan Am aircraft. The Pan Am crew desperately applied full power to escape into the grass, but, a 747 does not turn quickly. The KLM jet captain violently pulled back on his controls, his tail literally scraping the runway in a desperate bid to get airborne. But it was too late. The KLM jet's landing gear sheared violently right through the Pan Am's upper deck, sparking a massive inferno before slamming back down to the ground 150 meters away. The resulting fire was so intense that all 248 people on the KLM flight perished instantly. On the Pan Am flight, 335 passengers also lost their lives. Miraculously, however, 61 people on the Pan Am flight managed to escape. Many of them survived by literally climbing out onto the wing through holes that had been ripped open in the roof, jumping to the ground before the fuel completely ignited. Section 4. The Legacy of the Disaster. In the aftermath, the international investigation placed primary responsibility on the KLM crew for taking off without explicit permission, though they definitely recognized the entire tragic chain of events that led up to it. Honestly, this became the single biggest wake-up call the aviation industry has ever experienced, and it is a massive reason why flying today is incredibly safe. For starters, the word takeoff is now strictly forbidden on radios unless an aircraft is being actively cleared. Period. Airlines also developed Crew Resource Management, or CRM, which actually empowers co-pilots and engineers to forcefully challenge a captain's decision. On top of that, ground radar became mandatory at major airports, proper runway lighting and markings were standardized, and a brand new airport, Tenerife South, was built far away from that treacherous mountain weather. As we wrap up this explainer, we're left to reflect on the immense fragility of the systems we build. Think about it. A bomb in a terminal, a sudden patch of cold mountain fog, a blocked taxiway, and a momentary squeal of radio interference. If just one of these dominoes had not fallen, 583 people would have lived. But because they did, they laid the very foundation of modern aviation safety protocols. Every single time you board a plane today, your safe arrival is heavily safeguarded by the hard, tragic lessons learned on a foggy runway in Tenerife. Thank you for joining us to understand this crucial piece of history. So, what other hidden chains of events are protecting us in our daily lives? Let that sink in as you go about your day.